Today is June 30th, and I just thought I'd show what I'm doing with my raised beds during the summertime. This here, I've been meaning to record this for a while. This is an experiment of mine. It's a hugelbed, or it's my version or attempt at a hugelbed, which is buried wood. My first experiment with a hugelbed, I buried the wood too deep, and the trench I dug was too deep, and I didn't fill it up high enough off the ground. And during the summer when we got our rains, it would flood and get waterlogged in the hugelbed. So stuff would grow really well in it throughout the dry season, but as soon as the rainy season came, it would get too waterlogged, and the roots of the plants that were growing in it would eventually drown. So I tried a different one. This one I have it raised up off the ground. It's hard to tell in the video, but it's definitely higher than the ground. It's probably 2.5 or 3 feet off the ground in the center, but underneath is wood and like wood logs and some mulch and leaves and things that got dropped off here when the tree cutting people came around and were cutting all the trees in the neighborhood to get them away from the power lines. They use their shredder and they shred up, you know, it's like oak leaves and oak branches and stuff and palm fronds, and they shred all that stuff up, and we had them drop it off at our house. I put some of that in here and kind of like filled in the wood with that, and then I put hay. I put a layer of hay or a couple layers of hay. I used, I think, a bale of hay or a couple bales of hay. Also some pine needles and leaves. And then I put some chicken manure compost in there, and then filled it all on top with some good compost and like garden soil blend. And I've given it some fertilizer, organic fertilizer on the top. I'm trying to keep this one all organic and see if I can get stuff to grow in it. So I don't have a whole lot growing in it yet because it's a new bed, and I think it really probably needs, some of that stuff needs to break down more for it to release more of the nutrients. I think a lot of the nutrients are probably locked up in all that stuff. I really should have given it a season to compost first, but I was anxious to go ahead and just start using it. So I planted a bunch of marigolds in it, and mostly just peppers and a few other little things. So here's some banana peppers I've got growing out here. Back there are those, it's hard to tell, but there are some Greek peppers growing back there. This is a jalapeno pepper. It doesn't have anything on it right now, but I've harvested a few off of there. This is a little fig tree that's growing out here. This was an Everglades cherry tomato plant, but it's died. The sun and the drought was just too intense for it. It was looking great. I wish I would have gotten a picture of it before the sun scorched it. It was a huge bush and just absolutely full of cherry tomatoes. And I'm sure it's gonna reseed itself out here. That's why I'm just letting it stay here. Oh, and then that's got quite a few little peppers on it. This is a paprika plant. So those are little paprika peppers. I need to pick those and take them inside. This here is a moringa tree. I was hoping it would give shade to the surrounding plants, but because it has nice, like, lacy, thin leaves that they don't give too much shade, but they give some shade. But it's not giving enough shade. Really, this whole bed could use a little bit more shade. It's just totally scorching hot out here, and the sun is just blazing right overhead. So I need to figure out something to give it a little more shade. Either plant a few more of these, or thinking about maybe doing some sort of trellis that I can let beans, vines grow up the side of and cover the top. This here is a papaya. It's doing well. Here's another, this is a type of small orange sweet peppers. I harvested all the ones that were on here, so there's none growing on it right now. This is just porterweed. It attracts butterflies and bees, so mostly just having it here to attract pollinators. And then I have some more pepper plants growing out here. These are Jimmy Nardello pepper plants. I've already harvested my first batch of them. There's a few new ones growing, but most of them I already harvested. Hopefully I'll get a couple more batches of peppers before the summer is over. I probably do need to give these poor plants a little bit more shade. Like over here under this tree, it's like the perfect amount of shade. But on the edges where there's no shade, it's just scorching sun. And then this is Asian long beans, but they are covered in aphids. So they've been growing well, and I got some of the beans. They have long beans. They also call it asparagus bean, but the aphids are just all over it. So I'm probably just going to rip those out from this bed, because they were sort of taking over this tree for a while. I already ripped a few of them out. They were climbing up the tree, and it was actually kind of cool because the bean pods were hanging down from the tree, and they had a pretty flower. But see, this is actually some of the stuff right here. This is the dead vines that were growing. I was afraid they were going to choke the tree. I don't think you want too many vines growing on your trees, so I decided maybe I didn't put them in the best place. I'll have to relocate the next batch that I grow. Although some of them it's self-seeded in a few spots right here. This is more Asian long beans that seeded itself. This is oregano, and then I just have lots of marigolds to attract pollinators. So far my hugelbed is going pretty well, better than the last one, and the rains have come and started, and nothing's drowning this time, so that's good. So over here I'll show you my other raised beds. I've pulled everything out mostly. I had spinach and carrots growing in here, but I pulled those out and planted some, this is black-eyed peas, also known as cowpeas or southern cowpeas. I just am gonna grow mostly these in the bed. This is a type of holy basil, and the bees love it, and I left it alone, and I'll just let it stay until it dies. It's still living right now, so I'll just let it go. The bees are enjoying it. But then in all the bare spots I planted black-eyed peas, and then I also planted a few zinnias. I think this is a zinnia that's coming up just because they're pretty. The reason I'm planting the black-eyed peas, other than the fact that I'll have black-eyed peas from them, it's a nitrogen fixing plant, which means it puts nitrogen back into the soil, and it's a good cover crop. So these black-eyed peas these plants will get huge, and they'll just take over this whole bed in a few months, and that's the plan, is just to let them take over the bed in the summer. There's not really anything else that can stand to live out here during the summer. I mean, there's a few things, but this way they'll compete for they'll keep the bed hopefully from getting too many weeds, because they'll crowd out the weeds and take over the whole bed, and then at the end of the summer I'll cut them down. Some of them I'll probably harvest some of the black-eyed peas, and then I'll just cut down the rest and let them kind of be like a mulch covering on the ground out here, because you really don't want so much exposed soil. This is really not good that the soil is exposed right here. I mean, for one thing, the weeds are going to grow, and it's just not good for the soil life to get so scorched and be bare like this. It's better to have stuff growing in there, adding to the nutrients and protecting the soil and the life that's in the soil from the harsh elements. So hopefully these black-eyed peas will take off really soon and just get huge and cover the soil, cover the whole bed. So I did that in 2 of my beds. These are the same. This is all cowpeas out here. And these are definitely taking off, and I do have a few marigolds growing out here as well. They are supposed to repel nematodes in the soil, but I don't know if they'll do enough, because I don't have that many out here. I actually thought about planting more seeds of marigolds in this bed as well, but the black-eyed peas will probably get so big that they'll crowd out the marigolds, so I'm not sure if there's much point. I might try it just for an experiment. I have tons of marigold seeds, so I think you would need a lot of marigolds to repel the nematodes, and I don't even know if it would be possible to repel them all. We have such a problem with them here. This here, it's embarrassing to even show you this, but this is where my strawberries are growing. Right now it's just weeds. I need to pull the weeds, but I figure they're actually kind of protecting the strawberry plants right now because it's so hot. I need to get another trellis like those and put one over the strawberries to keep them from scorching during the summer. So I figured I'd just leave the weeds until I was ready to put a trellis up, which I need to do soon. But the weeds are definitely starting to take over. It's that time of year. That I've been out here trying to pull weeds. I've got these 2 beds clear, and that was a lot of work, and I have still a little bit more to go on this side, but I have been pulling weeds for several weekends now. This is my sweet potato bed, and this is the first hugelbed that I tried when I mentioned that I dug one too deep and it holds too much water. That's this one. You can barely see it through all the sweet potatoes. I actually built it up higher this year, so it's off the ground higher than it was before, so hopefully I won't have problems with it getting waterlogged again this year. But the sweet potatoes absolutely love this hugelbed. They grew some nice big potatoes last year that just like started themselves. I had sweet potatoes growing in pots like that nearby. In fact, it was these pots. I had sweet potatoes just like now. These are all sweet potatoes too. I just have several different varieties. But they had some of the vines had come out of the pots and gotten into this hugelbed, and then they just took off, and I got tons of potatoes, sweet potatoes last year, just from some vines that escaped and got into the hugelbed, and they just loved it so much. I decided to just let this whole bed be sweet potatoes this year. These are purple sweet potatoes I'm growing out here, so I'm trying to keep them separate from all my other sweet potatoes. Since I have a lot of different varieties, I'm just keeping the purple ones out here, and then the other ones I'm keeping in pots, which I have more over here. These are all sweet potatoes as well, again in the fabric pots. These are 10-gallon fabric pots, and I like these because I can move them around. In fact, these sweet potatoes are not probably going to stay here. I'm probably going to move them somewhere else. I just haven't decided where. But also, it's easy to find the sweet potatoes when you're harvesting when they're in a pot. So when they're in the ground, it's harder to find where the actual sweet potato roots are because they spread out so much and the vines go everywhere. So anyway, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you what I was doing, mainly that I am just cover cropping the raised beds and then growing sweet potatoes out here. So sweet potatoes and black-eyed peas or southern peas are easy to grow in the summertime. They don't require really any maintenance during the summer, which is good because I don't want to come out here and do any maintenance during the summertime. It's way too hot. Also, I did just want to mention that it is important to stay on top of the weeds. Now is the time to get all the weeds up. I've learned that as soon as the rainy season starts, which is usually the beginning of June, and this year has been no exception, we are in the rainy season now. In fact, it's probably going to rain soon. You definitely want to get all the weeds pulled before the rain comes, because then any weeds that are out here will just explode and take over the garden. So I was trying to be proactive this year. I pulled the weeds out of the beds, got the cowpeas planted, and hopefully they will take over the bed and not the weeds. That's the idea. And I'm actually proud of myself. I did pretty good this year. Some years I have gone on vacation in June, and just by the time I get back from vacation, the weeds have just taken over, and I don't want that to happen again this year. So so I've been trying to be more prepared. So, and then I've got to get these weeds, and then I'm pretty much done out here. And I'm not going to be spending a whole lot of time out here in the heat. So, yep. So that's what I'm doing for the summer in my raised beds. Have a lovely day. Bye.